Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations. Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
Who disrupts my coronation?
Everyone has been destroyed because of this freak. I won't allow it! These babies just saved this lame fest party!
Guys, what's going on? You are listening to TWIG, the flagship of stupidity. I'm your host, Mike the Birdman Dodd, back from his civic holiday weekend, if you happen to be Canadian, but I'm back, reunited, you say, with my epic co-host from Kitchener himself.
Alex.
And yes, so hopefully you've had a long and safe and happy holiday weekend, if you happen to be celebrating up in the Great White North. It's certainly been a week, to say the very least. It's been a very, very long week.
It's been an eventful couple weeks, actually.
Like, holy crap. I was saying this on Twitter. This year feels like it's already been 3.
Yeah, like what have you been up to in the last couple weeks or so?
Truthfully, watching a lot of television, playing some video games, and doing a little bit of reading here and there. But when I look at the news cycle, it doesn't end, so to speak.
Yeah, like I've been keeping up bits and pieces here and there. Like I was visiting family, like 2 sides of my families in the last week or so, hopping around from place to place. And, you know, that's why I didn't have a great or good enough connection to be able to record with you last week. But like, I tell you one thing, I really appreciate having really good broadband internet. When you go to a place that doesn't have it, you're like, oh my god, what do I do?
That's why I'm glad my like cell phone has a really good internet connection typically. Plus I have like 6 gigs of data, which I don't typically go through because I'm mostly at home. I don't get out a whole shit ton. So
well, I have a new phone plan as of the last week too. Like my old plan was like 1 gig of data, and I would always hit like 2. Well, it depends on price too. You're probably paying like over $100.
Yes.
So I was paying like 50, and my contract was up, and I was able to get a new phone. So not new to me. I got the Pixel 2 XL. It was one of those display model ones, so it had like less than 3 hours of use. They even guaranteed that. Mm-hmm. So I got it for less money than it would cost to get a Pixel 3a, and it's technically a better phone than the Pixel 3a. So I was like, sure. But in switching my plan, I went up to $70 a month, but that gave me 4 gigs of data. And I was like, okay, that's actually a good number, because I was getting overage charges and hitting like $70 a month anyway, just for going to 2.5 gigs. So I'm like, okay, I average about 2 to 2.5. 4 gives me enough headroom, and I don't need to bring the bill anything above $80 a month. Mm-hmm. So like, it's wild out there how much most of the phone companies will rip you off. Like
Yeah.
like there's the few that do have unlimited data plans that are pretty good. They usually have crappier network coverage.
Yeah, their
So-
coverage is usually atrocious. Like
So,
I
yeah.
myself am with Rogers, and I'm really happy with my phone.
I was with PC Mobile when they were a third network that used the Telus network, but then they were bought by Kudo, but they were still treated like a second class citizen. So like everything was slow. Well, now I'm with regular Kudo, which you'd think is the same company, but it's not. The data is much faster. Everything's much better. But like there's Freedom Mobile, but Freedom is like, yeah, you get unlimited data, but like you go outside of any of the major cities and you're kind of screwed unless you have like you pay for the extra plans that have roaming on it. And then when you do that, you're at the same price as anybody else anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah. Like other
well,
than that,
that's
like I have seen a crap ton of movies in the last couple weeks. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is good, not what I was expecting. I saw 2 films at the Ontario Science Centre. I made a point of going there to the OmniMax Dome because I haven't been there in 20 years. And I'll tell you one thing: when you watch an older film on there, like they showed one that was the moon landing using like the original footage, but 70 millimeter blown up, blah blah blah, looks fantastic. So does the new movies, the brand new IMAX ones that are using like the IMAX 8K digital cameras. Only thing is, they're so clear that you can actually see like the perforations because it's a dome screen. It's projecting onto like a metal mesh. You can actually see the metal mesh behind it, and I was like, "Whoa, never saw that before." So like, we're finally at a point where like the technology has gotten to the point where it's finally looking dated in that building, and that projector's been up there since like 1971 or 72, and it blew away everything else like basically in the world as far as like the viewing angle and everything on it. So I was like, holy shit, it's finally happened. They're gonna finally have to upgrade this.
Yeah, I actually remember going to the Science Center a fair chunk when I was younger, and I also went. Actually, my first date with Blair, my first true date with Blair, was to the Science Center. Our first date was actually to the casino where we won money, and I got a tattoo that night. Weird timing, I know. Yeah, interesting. I was able to convince her. I'm a con man. But yeah, anyway, love the Ontario Science Center. It's a great resource for those of you that have access to it. It's in Toronto, and the last time I went was for the Marvel exhibit.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they may have other OmniMax domes like in the States. I'm not sure. I know this was the first one. So like for anybody that doesn't know, like IMAX, when you go to IMAX at like a Cineplex or whatever, an AMC in the States, they're just like a slightly larger screen with better audio. Like they'll have like, it'll be like 9.1 audio, whatever it is. And then when you go to an actual IMAX, I'm going to say in quotes, it's like the 100-foot screen and it's even bigger. And you'll see that at like fairgrounds and special events, which is cool. But the OmniMax dome, the thing behind that is it's literally a spherical dome, and all the seats are sort of tilted back, and it's like you're staring at the sky. And what they do is there's like 42 speakers. Like we're talking, now we have Dolby Atmos, and you can have as many speakers as you want in your home system. But this is like 50 years ago, and they had like a 42 speaker system that would have directional audio all around you, and you viewed everything through like almost a fisheye lens, so it had like your entire field of view is like you're there. So I saw the one that was the moon landing, and the new movie was Super Dogs. It was actually made by Marvel, I think, and it was about all the different dogs, like ones that are rescue dogs in the States, ones in Italy, showing off the different types of dogs that do things like rescue in avalanches or in like disaster zones. And it was hosted by Chris Evans, and it had like a very Marvel sort of motif.
That's pretty cool, and it's always cool to see the Marvel guys doing things, kind of capitalizing on their fame and their success, and loading it to documentaries and stuff like that. Because I know, what was it? I know there was a recent documentary on the moon landing, and it was done by Harrison Ford. So,
and there's one coming out, I think on volcanoes, and it's also done by. I think that one might be. Is it Chris Pratt doing that one? Like they're getting a lot of Marvel people to do and Disney people to do the narration for these. I know that there was one recently with why am I drawing a blank? Tony Stark.
Robert Downey Jr.
Yes, that's it. So I didn't realize that because it's like they do 2 or 3 films every season, I guess, and they'll be like they're 45-minute movies, and they cost you about $10-12 for a ticket. Well worth it if you're up here to see them, and if they're showing similar ones at special events in your area wherever you live, they're well worth it because you're not going to see almost like regular theatrical movies don't approach that quality. And getting the home video versions of these IMAX documentaries don't reach that.
No, exactly, because part of the experience is the experience, actually being there and experiencing it in this theatrical setup. So, cool stuff. Anyway, coming up on the show this week, we have a lot to cover in the news. Obviously, to address the big elephant in the room, we are sending very positive vibes and hopefully common sense to the tragedies that happened in the United States this past weekend with the shooting in Dayton, Ohio, and El Paso, Texas. I actually had a friend who lived in El Paso, and I immediately messaged her. I'm like, hey, are you okay? She's like, yeah, it wasn't too far from where I live, though. So thank God for that. And I'm not going to politic on this one just because we know what has to happen. We'll probably talk about, I'm sure there'll be some story next week where we will talk about this a little bit more in depth. But I did want to address that elephant in the room before we get into the news this week. So coming up on the show this week, we have to talk about the ESA, or the E3 basically leaked a whole bunch of personal info of a bunch of journalists and YouTubers. So that's fun. Ninja's in the news this week. And also we have reviews coming up from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, The Curse of Llorona, which I'm pretty sure I'm still mispronouncing that. We're also going to take a look at Fire Emblem, The Three Houses, with an extended review of that from Alex. And finally, what was the last one, Alex?
Metal Wolf Chaos XD.
Which is insane, to say the least.
It's just ridiculous.
So we'll be back right here on This Week in Geek, otherwise known as Twig, the flagship of stupidity. We'll be back right after this. We're looking at The Curse of La Llorona from Warner Brothers Home Entertainment, though I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that name, so please forgive me. My Spanish is terrible, and that's just the way it is. Anyway, so let's talk about the movie. So this movie is tied into the Conjuring universe in a very, very slight, kind of, sort of way, blink and you'll miss it, sort of cameo from a character who appeared in one of the Annabelle movies. And, yeah. Let's talk about this movie. So, another way to look at this movie is to call it Jump Scare the Movie. It's about a family who basically becomes under attack from this basically known as the Weeping Woman, the sort of Mexican lore myth where bad children are told if you don't behave, this Weeping Woman will come and take you away, and, well, game over, so to speak. But it sees a family of 3, a mom, a son, and a daughter, get besieged by this spirit, as the mom is a caseworker for, like, social services, and she sees another woman's children get murdered, and the mom is like, well, you clearly couldn't have done it, you had an alibi, you were at church the whole time. And then it switches over to the new family, because now her children are now marked by the creature. And the movie really picks up in its last third. In fact, the best part about this movie is a guy from Breaking Bad, Raymond Cruz. He's one of the Salamanca brothers, and he's the best part. He plays this priest named Raphael, and he's pretty cool. I would like to see him on Supernatural. Anyway, getting back to the point of this movie, The Curse of La Llorona, it's Jump Scare the Movie. The fact that it tries to tie itself into The Conjuring, I think, is the weakest part of it. Although the creature design is really, really, really cool. One of the guys behind The Conjuring, James Wan, consulted on it and really kind of gave them hints and tips how to make it look as cool as possible. And it works. I mean, when the jump scares happen, they're effective. The problem is it's the narrative that goes along with it. It just seems like there's a series of jump scares held together by a really thin narrative until you pick up the priest character about halfway through this movie. The special features on this are incredibly light. None are longer than 10 minutes. There's some deleted scenes, some storyboards. There's the making of the monster is probably the most interesting one. I wish the one where they go into the curse of La Llorona was longer. Like, give me some more historians. Give me something a little bit more to chew on, and maybe I'd be interested in this. Other than that, this movie is a wait and watch on Netflix at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're bored. I really can't recommend this movie, and I can't say that I was really scared, but I do say the monster design was pretty cool. Need a new weapon in your battle against evil? Check out LibrisArcana.com for Canada's premier RPG dice subscription service. For only $7.97 Canadian with free shipping. You can get a new complete set of role-playing dice from D4s to D20s delivered straight to your door. Dice themes are new each month and can be anything your mind can imagine and beyond. Visit LibrisArcana.com and subscribe for only $7.97 Canadian with free shipping, and be prepared to open up new worlds of adventure.
News on the mark!
And welcome back to Twig, the flagship of stupidity. I'm, of course, Mike the Birdman Dodd, joined with Alex, the producer. It's been a long week in the news, if you can believe that. Holy shit, it's only Tuesday.
You know what? Honestly, before we start, I just grabbed a package that came to the door. I have no clue what's in it, so should we open it now?
No, later.
No, later?
Later.
I want to see what it is.
You can wait 20 minutes.
I can.
Okay, so starting off on a fairly serious note, information and privacy is a very big hot button topic in 2019. And well, one of the people you'd think to protect you would be those big media expos, like a lot of YouTubers, a lot of press go, and you would suspect your information would be protected. Well, over the weekend, E3, or the Entertainment Software Association, leaked the information of over 2,000 games journalists, editors, and other content creators via a simple link on their website where it was called Registered Media List.
Oh, good God.
Yeah, so over 2,000 members of the press were basically doxxed by the ESA.
You know how we get those contacts every year? They're like, are you coming out to E3 book stuff with us?
Yeah,
kind of makes me glad we didn't go.
Yeah, this is a year I'm particularly thankful that we didn't go. Because
like this year in particular, for sure.
Now, it has since been taken down by the ESA, and they're like very publicly apologetic and whatnot. But this brings up several questions and concerns that I have. Number one, does this open them up to any sort of litigation? Can you sue them for this?
Probably.
And what does this mean? Because the world is full of weirdos, wackos, and stalkers. And this information is already out there in communities you don't want it on. So a few people have said they've already changed their phone numbers, they're changing their email authentications and all that stuff. Basically, if you were one of these people affected by this thing, change your phone number. If you tell your phone company that this is what happened, they'll do it for free. Watch your emails. Be very suspicious of them. And what a way to fuck up. Like,
especially
seriously.
In a year where they've had there's been a lot of issues with them over the past couple of years, and it's been building and building to the point where, like, Sony didn't even show up. So,
yeah.
It's great. Every single person that worked as a Sony rep or media for Sony didn't get doxxed, right?
Yeah, it's basically like people like other content creators, people who curate YouTube channels, but also press who work for radio and television. And like I said, there's a lot of weirdos out there. And the fact that this information is out there in certain online forums, they're like, well, now we have the information to get at them. That's frankly terrifying, because now home addresses are out there, phone numbers, emails, stuff like that. So this could lead to identity theft and potentially worse. Absolutely. And I know that's to say it's a doom and gloom scenario, but sorry, this is 2019. This is a hellscape now.
It kind of is.
Like, basically, we live in a dystopian cyberpunk future minus the cool cybernetics. This is about as close to Shadowrun as you're going to get. And God, that terrifies me. And it really should terrify a lot of you, especially if you aspire to go to E3, just to know how mismanaged and handled your like kind of data is. And if you're a content creator of any size that has a significant following behind you, there's always going to be a few haters out there. But what happens when those people take it the wrong way?
And don't take this like a certain way, but I think a lot of times women in journalism there are going to be targeted more than the guys are, because you see it.
Yeah,
you see it a lot.
Yeah, because they're going to be like, you don't belong here, and this is a man's world, or whatever.
Get crazy, possessive, stalker type people.
Exactly, and I'd be to that type of information. I mean, you're absolutely correct. I mean, I would be very fearful if I was a woman journalist right now, especially with my information now out there, and that's fuck. 2019. Can you like stop?
And here's the thing: it's not hard to just not post a link. Like, why would you even think of doing that?
Yeah, and the fact that it was a spreadsheet, somebody had to do this. This wasn't a casual mistake.
Somebody had to manually link it. Like, they were thinking they were linking it to their internal intranet, but they put it on the main website.
Yeah,
it's somebody who's incompetent in charge of putting it there.
Yeah, and just
because it's really one of two things. Somebody incompetent was told to do something and they didn't know how to do it and they did it wrong, or two, it's somebody who had a grudge.
I could believe both. I really could, because the ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, they've been getting flack for years over, is E3 relevant anymore? Because you look at Nintendo, you look at Sony, they do their own versions of Directs now. It won't be long before Microsoft does one. And it's more open to the public than it ever has been before. It's not just industry people going there now. So the exclusive stories just aren't there anymore.
Well, the biggest mistake they made was opening it to the public. And not from, like, as a gamer, I would have been like, hey, I want to go. But there are conventions for that. This was supposed to be a trade show to show off the newest technologies. And when it failed to be a private trade show is when the rise of other events came up. Like, Tokyo Game Show is still bigger. Gamescom is now bigger than this. You have games that are premiering for the fans at like PAX and like MagFest and stuff. So you have the rise of a lot of other alternatives out there that just weren't there 20 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, yeah. I mean, if you want to premiere a game for the public, yeah, take it to a PAX, take it to a rather large convention or something like that. Leave E3 to the professionals. And I'm not just saying that to be a gatekeeper.
No, of course not, yeah.
Yeah, it's to be, this is for trade professionals.
Yes, and if you want, like, I like the idea of it streaming to the public where anybody can watch those press events. That's the extent of what it should be. If you want to play hands-on, you should have to wait till it's at another event or till it's out. The problem is having it open to the public, it doesn't allow the press enough time with each game to properly get hands-on content, because they now have to wait for like hours in line just to play games when somebody who's non-press can be playing before them. It doesn't make any sense to me.
I think one of my issues with it is it turns into more spectacle than information.
Yeah, like if you look at the old press events, especially from like Sony, there were amazing things announced back in the day, and they were done in like a conference room, like a traditional hotel conference room with like an overhead projector, and then they would not only list off like, here, now it's all like, here's how flashy it is, here's all the pictures, here's all this money we put into PR, when it used to be, here's all the specs, here's how we expect it to sell, here are some games that we think are going to come out that are going to sell to this market better. It was truly a trade show. And they still threw out really good flashy information, but they would throw out trailers for that. The show itself was for the hardcore, numbers, and you would glean that information and then turn that into your content. Now the content's laid out for you.
Yeah. Like another way that I'm also kind of viewing it as, I'm not saying when you go to this, you shouldn't have fun, because enthusiast press still counts because we would be counted as enthusiast press.
Absolutely, yeah.
But if they wanted to disclude us, I could then go to my radio credentials and say, hey, I'm still affiliated with this particular radio network. I'd like to attend.
Yeah,
And
I think that part of the issue is it's shifted towards non-traditional press is probably the best way to put it. If you have a Twitter following, you can now be considered press.
Yeah, so people like, say, Angry Joe and his millions of followers, should he be there? Yes, absolutely.
He should be there, but at the same time, they're now catering to that market. They're catering to those people when they used to cater to
magazines,
the people that specifically like Walmart that sold the games. Like it was a trade show in the traditional sense where they tried to sell. Like you'd go there, and Nintendo didn't really need to sell anything. But let's say you went there and somebody like we get a lot of review items from PDP. If we went there, or if a store went there, or a large chain went there, PDP would be showing off their product and then go, hey, if you order so many, we'll give you so much of this. It was basically where a lot of sales deals happened. And I don't think that happens anymore.
I think a lot of that happens at CES.
Yes, CES has become the big one. And there's still networking that's done, especially if you're a smaller peripheral company or a smaller game company that really wants to get a distributor. But it used to be you would go there to show off the game that you made and you'd find a distributor. Like let's say a small studio with like 5 people made a really cool indie game and they wanted a publisher. Well, they would go there and reps from EA wouldn't just be there to shill their product. They would have reps that went around to the small companies to then work out deals to be distributing their stuff, like a traditional trade show. And I really don't think that happens there anymore.
I don't know. At least from a lot of the people that I talk to are legitimate media or big enthusiast press, and it's all about getting hands-on time. It's all about interviews, stuff like that. I'm not sure about the corporate side of it. So
yeah, it's more about
really
the gaga and less about the actual hardcore stuff.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, thanks for that dumpster fire, ESA. Moving on to the next story, and I could sum it up in literally the headline: Ninja has left Twitch for Mixer.
And they lost 1% of their viewers, apparently, because of it. And 1% is a ton.
Oh, yeah. Well, Ninja himself, I think there's like 1 million viewed hours in a month. And they lost like a 1% of that. And that's huge.
I saw, like, basically the breakdown was 1%. And you're like, that doesn't sound like a lot. 1% when this is somebody making millions of dollars. And think about you're making money on the back end from them. They have now lost millions of dollars a month because Ninja himself was making $500,000 a month from streaming alone, and that's not including brand deals and everything else. And that's not including everything that they do for him when they sponsor a competition or anything. They can't use his branding anymore.
Yeah, like Twitch was pretty quick when he announced it last week that he was leaving Twitch for Mixer. They deplatformed him almost immediately. Like he lost his partner status.
Which you know what? They think that they're doing it to punish him. He's not losing anything. It's making good press for wherever he goes.
Well, yeah, because pretty much Mixer is the little platform that couldn't. Because Microsoft bought it back in 2016 where it was known as Beam, and then they rebranded it.
Yeah.
It's on every single Xbox One.
Absolutely, and there's built-in apps for Windows 10. Now, I have never, like prior to E3, I had never used it. You know, again, I'm not a big streamer. I've used Twitch here and there, and I know you've done more Twitch. But watching the different trade shows, when I would jump between them, Mixer had the best quality by far. Especially like playing it on an Xbox One X.
Mm-hmm.
On my 4K TV, it goes, you have an Xbox One X with a 4K TV. Would you like to play it in 4K? So I went, sure. Twitch usually only does up to 1080p. And some of the streams that are there on there or on YouTube especially were of lower quality, not low quality like bad, but you can tell they're a stream. When I clicked the 4K of especially the Microsoft one because they're really trying to show it off, but the Microsoft one as well as I think it was Bethesda was done on there, but the Microsoft one, when you click 4K, it detected if you had HDR, turned that on, and like. If you walked by, you'd think you were getting a full end like satellite or digital cable broadcast, like, or even like you were watching it from a Blu-ray. Like the quality was phenomenal, and the latency was like nothing. So I think it's probably, when tuned well and to the right person, especially Microsoft, it's probably the best quality on you can get currently on a network. It's just they don't have the following yet.
Yeah, because I think something like that, Twitch has like hundreds of thousands of people viewing.
Yeah,
and I think Mixer is somewhere in the low five. It's somewhere between 5 and 10,000. I want to say I saw some breakdown of it.
I believe the breakdown is like Twitch is number one, then YouTube, then I think Mixer's on the same level as Facebook.
I think Facebook's more popular because I think Mixer's the last one.
Yeah, Mixer, but because Mixer is basically purely dedicated just to games, sort of.
Yeah, like
Facebook has a lot of other programs, but yeah, I would say as far as they're probably just inching below, but it's looking to really overtake everything. It probably won't overtake Twitch.
Oh God, no!
But it could be at the level that YouTube is.
Now, one of the things that's interesting to note is Mixer's most active channel before Ninja came over was this non-licensed music channel, and it had at most 5,000 people watching at any given time. Ninja, I think, if I recall, this was like a couple days ago, he had 267,000 followers come over.
It was 350
I don't know what
this morning.
Yeah. I don't know what his concurrent view count is, like or like how many viewers he's had at once so far. But if even a fraction of that comes over from Twitch,
well, the talk is that within a week, the rumors are like basically the speculation is that he will have more people that are like subscribed to him on there than everybody else combined.
Yeah, does not surprise me in the least.
Once he hits 1 million, he'll have more than anybody. Like if you added them all up together.
Well, it's funny because Microsoft has not put any money behind Xbox One and Mixer marketing. I remember once again seeing a breakdown. I saw it like their advertising budget was something like $40 million,
which is nothing. Really.
Yeah, which is nothing to Microsoft.
They are. And the most marketing they did, honestly, was on YouTube when they had their channel up for E3, and they said, hey, you can watch it here, Twitch, blah blah, but watch it on Mixer, and you can watch it with the best experience in 4K. And I went, sure. And they probably did more to market it through their E3 show than they did for anything else.
Yeah. Now is the time when people are going to jump ship from Twitch to Mixer because they want to capitalize on that popularity, which is a smart move to have multiple platforms. But now you have to decide, where do you want to build your community? I know several big not YouTubers, Twitch people are like, where do you want me to go? If I stay here, I have platform management and everything.
The interesting thing will be is if they launch Mixer on like the PlayStation platform as well, because while it's not strictly an Xbox branded product, it is technically it's on Windows 10. It's considered universal. They're not tying it, because if they did, they'd say Xbox Mixer, but they're not calling it that. Mm-hmm. So if they really wanted to get people in, because there are more people streaming from PS4 than any other home console platform. Like, PC is still reigning king, obviously, but there's more people streaming on PS4 than at all, and it's basically people like, you can stream to YouTube, but most people just stream directly to Twitch through it. So that would be a fight that Twitch does not want to lose. So they might try to offer something to Sony, because if Microsoft is smart and they were saying they want to go on multi-platform for all of their, they wanted to put games everywhere, right? A big step in the right direction would be to offer Mixer on PS4.
It wouldn't surprise me if we see it within the next year. I'm curious to know what big personalities are going to make the jump over to Mixer to see if they can capitalize on this. I'm very curious to know how much Ninja got paid.
Oh, I can speculate.
Tens of millions.
You've got to speculate that for him to move, it has to be more than he makes in a year, because they're going to want to give him a multi-year deal. So if he was not really I don't think he was getting a guaranteed deal, was he? Was he getting a guaranteed downside of $500,000 from?
I'm not 100% sure of that. Like, I know
they said he made $500,000, but who knows? His downside could have been $250 a month. Yeah, and then he made up the rest. Like, they might go, okay, so you're getting paid. Let's say your deal you're getting $1 million guaranteed a deal from Twitch per year, and then the rest is what you get from your actual subs and all that sort of shit. So he could very possibly, if they've been like, okay, we're going to sign you to a 3-year deal, and we'll give you $5 million, and then we're also going to sponsor some stuff, and we'll get you some exclusive stuff, and maybe we're Microsoft, we'll throw you in a television or movie production we're going to put together or something. Like, there's probably some back end stuff that he's getting there. He would probably have to get at least 50% more than what he's currently getting as a guarantee to move, because moving, there's a lot of hiccups with that. You can lose audience. It has to be a lucrative enough offer for him to go, I got to change what I'm doing. And I know one of the big things he was saying was that the crowd that plays Xbox is technically a younger crowd than what he was dealing with on PC. So he may be switching platforms as well from PC to Xbox. Now, if they want him to do that, like he can say that he wants to do it for whatever reason, but if he does switch to Xbox, that means that they've signed him with an exclusivity deal, and they probably gave him a lot more money, like a lot more.
Yeah, like my guess is his deal was worth tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, they probably signed him. It could have been, a guaranteed downside of $5 or $10 million a year. Which again, if they've only spent $40 million on marketing, that's nothing. They can go, okay, for this year, a quarter of our marketing budget will be Ninja, and that might bring in enough.
Plus, we also have to figure, like, with the Xbox 2 or Project Scarlet launching next year, they want people to be hot wherever that is.
And they're going to want him probably out at every single, the X events they do across the countries?
I know right now, I know this past weekend he did Lollapalooza in Chicago, I think it was.
And then what's the big one they do in Toronto every year?
They won't bring him to something like that, but they'll bring him to Gamescom.
It all depends.
Trust me. Trust me on that one. I love the Xbox team in Toronto, but you're not bringing Ninja to that.
It all depends on if it's part of his deal, though. If he has to go to certain countries' events.
Yeah, but trust me, the X events in Canada are not that special.
Unless they do a push for it. That's the thing. Like, they'll probably send him to Gamescom.
Yeah, for sure. Tokyo Game Show,
Gamescom. He'll make an appearance at PAX or wherever they want to throw their weight around for something. And he'll probably make he'll be at CES randomly probably next year. Like, they'll throw him wherever they're going to have the Xbox brand.
Yeah, basically wherever there's going to be eyes on it, wherever he'll get maximum exposure.
And like Comic-Con, things like that even.
Oh God, yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, honestly, it's a big win for Mixer. I would like to see that platform come up. I know a few people who stream on there. I know some people that are starting to stream on there because they want to start building their communities.
Should we stream on there?
I'm not a bandwagoner.
No, but I could see, like I said earlier in the year that I wanted to do a lot more streaming, and it's just been finding the time to do it. But if that's a platform that, here's the thing, you have to make it easy for us.
I want the tools to be easy to work with.
Exactly. And
also, I also want community support. Twitch community support sucks. If something happens, and unless you have a manager at Twitch, your shit will not get fixed. Yeah,
and I was looking at that, and you got YouTube where you can have issues depending on your if you accidentally have the radio come on in the background, you could lose the monetization of your video.
Yep.
Whereas Mixer,
their community guidelines are pretty strict, but they are easy enough to follow.
From what I'm reading too, it's fairly easy to set up. It's just sort of, because it's already built into your Xbox. If you've got one, it's just sort of good to go, and it's just like spend a half hour customizing the way you want the layout to be, and you're pretty much done.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it'll be interesting to see where it goes. It will be interesting to see if they pull him in and then they start paying other people to come over, or if they want to do it right. Like, it would be interesting if they got somebody like Jack Black, who has his own YouTube channel, right, and it's got several million viewers, several million people over the last only 4 months or so. But if they start getting celebrities to join, move over from YouTube or other channels, it could be a really weird transition from traditional streaming platforms over to Mixer. I'm not sold on the name, honestly. I don't really like the name Mixer because it doesn't really explain what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not 100% on it either. So Ninja, best Best of luck to you and your giant amounts of money. Moving on to our next story. This one comes as a surprise to me, but Kevin Conroy is finally going to play a live-action Bruce Wayne on CW's Crisis on Infinite Earths, which comes out on December 8th, I think. This is fucking awesome. Old man Bruce. He's playing Batman Beyond.
So exactly. So do I have to? Because you're not totally caught up. You're like really far behind, right?
Light years behind. You have no idea.
Okay, so I think I'll have to do a primer with you. We don't have to watch anything, but I can give you the lowdown on what the storylines have been.
I've read the comics, so I probably have an idea-ish.
Well, not that. I mean, just the series, because it's going to be a crossover event. They do it every year because the shows air Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that sort of deal. They'll do a 3 or 4 parter. So you basically every year for the last 3 or 4 years, you get a TV movie, like a 2-hour movie or 2.5-hour movie spread out over the week. So usually the storylines, you don't have to have seen what's been going on. They try to make it sort of in its own bubble, but it's good to know sort of who the characters are and what their motivations are before you go in. So it last year was good. Like each year gets better and better. So I think in your case, you probably don't need to see the rest of the storylines. I do suggest eventually watching all of The Flash because it's the best superhero TV show ever made. As far as the rest of the shows, Legends of Tomorrow is very goofy, Doctor Who-ish is probably the best description I can give because basically Rory was the leader of it, from Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. So you've got that. Black Lightning, you can ignore, to be honest, and if you can send me hate all you want. It's not supposedly he'll be crossing over. That's the rumor. It'll be the first time they've done that because that show was sort of siloed in its own because originally it was made for BET. It's just not a very compelling show, unfortunately, for me at least. Then you got Arrow, which is finishing up this year. I don't know if they're going to have people from that. They could. And again, that's okay. You got Supergirl, which is meh. It's kind of terrible. It's kind of like when you figure what a 90s, like Lois and Clark type terribleness. It's like that. It's entertaining but terrible. And then The Flash is just genuinely good, and it's yet to be seen what Batwoman's like. But the crossovers are usually very well done, and they're going to have like Brandon Routh who's already in the series or in the whole universe playing Ant-Man. He's going to be reprising his role as Superman and Ant-Man in the same episode. He'll be
playing the Kingdom Come version of Superman, which is. If you've ever read the Kingdom Come comics, and I'm pretty sure you haven't,
I have not.
Holy shit, that's some good casting, and that's a dark fucking Superman to give him.
Well, he plays. They're doing it probably because he plays such a goofy character as Ant-Man.
Yeah,
or not Ant-Man. Sorry, Adam. Why am I drawn? Oh my god, my brain. He plays the Atom. That's it.
They're also talking about they want to bring in a Smallville actor. They don't know. There's been a lot of conversations that have happened. Supposedly Linda Card is out. She will likely not be reprising her role, though it wouldn't surprise me if they're keeping that heavily under wraps.
Yeah.
Burt Ward from the 60s Batman's going to be in it in some capacity.
I just get Shatner and have him play Two-Face like he should have already played way back in the day.
If I had to pick a Smallville actor, I don't want Tom Welling because we already have a Kingdom Come Superman. I want Lex Luthor. Michael Rosenbaum.
You can't get the crazy bitch that's now in jail.
Yeah, we're not getting Allison Mack. That's not going to happen.
I'm trying to think if you can get somebody else. Like, you're not going to get pretty much anybody from the original movies.
No.
Because they're either all old or dead or senile. So unfortunately.
Well, Linda Carter's got the relationship with Supergirl because she's the president in that show, I think. So there's a possibility for that.
Yeah, you can get her. You can't really get. I'm trying to think of anybody. I mean, they've already had what's her name from Lois and Clark?
Terry Hatcher?
Yes, they've already had her. Have they had?
There's
talk. Okay, there hasn't been Dean Cain yet.
I don't think that they should go all Superman. Although, I just had a thought and now it's gone. That's going to bother me because it was a really good suggestion too.
I mean, they're not going to get like a Michael Keaton or anybody like that.
No.
So,
but if they got Michael Rosenbaum as Lex Luthor from
Yeah.
Smallville, that's a great choice.
That's very true. Wasn't there a pilot that didn't go anywhere for, was it Aquaman or something back in the day?
Yes, there was that. And there was Aquaman in Smallville. There also was a Flash. There was a Green Arrow. If you could get some of those guys back, that'd be pretty cool. If you could get, like, maybe, I don't know, Dr. Fate or something.
A bunch of people from Stargate were eventually in Smallville as well. So they could get some of those people because they still film a lot of their projects up in BC. So,
But they want the recognizable Kevin Conroy coming out as Old Man Bruce.
I mean, you can get
That'll
Mark
be
Hamill,
interesting
live action Mark Hamill.
because technically he's already the trickster.
Yeah,
in that
so,
universe.
but you could get him as the Joker
There's talk of that or rumors of it.
because that would be pretty fantastic. Pretty much everybody else is like you don't really have anybody else left from the 1960s Batman, so you can't really get
Adam West is dead.
Yeah, like because like even the youngest people on there, like
They're in their
Burt Ward's-
70s now.
Burt Ward's in the 70s now. Yeah, so you really would only have like, and even the cartoons, like a lot of the voice actors are all gone too. So you,
Well, that's one you could get is Tara Strong, who plays Harley Quinn, but also as Batgirl. Because
yeah,
Tara Strong looks the part.
that's very true. And I'm trying to think if there was any other major property that was really like, you had the Birds of Prey TV show that didn't do too well, but I don't know if there's anybody in there that was like a breakout star.
Not that I can recall.
Yeah, and there's and as far as the Flash 1990 TV show,
He's already in the show.
he's already in it as his father and as that version of the Flash as well.
I think there's talk of a Jon Stewart Green Lantern is going to be in there, so that'll be cool. Because he's one of my favorite versions of the Green Lantern. Because nobody would recognize a fucking Kyle Rayner version. Fuck him. But anyway,
yeah, like there's a lot to pull from, and it depends on how much money they want to throw into this.
well, if it's going to be the last season of Arrow, I could see them putting a little bit more money into it because they know this is supposed to be the big hoorah for a lot of this.
There's only 8 episodes of Arrow left, and depending on when it premieres, it might lead directly into this
December 8th, I think, is the premiere date.
of Arrow.
No, of Crisis on Infinite Earths.
So then it would be probably premiering in October. So yeah, it'll probably either the last episode will lead right into it, or it might still be airing concurrent.
So this is going to be awesome. I'll definitely check this out.
Yep.
Looking forward to it. So moving on to our last news story this week. This is the one that Alex gathered for me, and I'm going to let you take this one. This is the console wars.
Okay. So basically, you know how we've always talked about the 90s and 80s console wars have always been, big amongst us gamers, talking about which system was best and why one succeeded and one didn't succeed, what games were better than others and versions, that sort of deal. Well, now it's going to sort of hit the mainstream. There's going to be a TV show produced specifically about, the 80s and 90s console wars. And you see that sort of thing. Like, I think we're finally hitting the point where reality shows have not run out of steam, but they've mined all they can from like antique shows and that sort of deal. And now they're moving into like the pop culture that we like. So I'm just going to pull up here. I can't remember off the top of my head what channel it's going to be airing on, but let us see. All right. Yeah.
CBS is supposed to distribute it with
Yeah.
Legendary Television.
And that's what I
doing
wasn't
the actual-
sure exactly. Is it going to be on CBS or is it going to be on one of their satellite networks, like on a cable channel, that sort of deal?
Or CBS All Access.
Yeah, so that which would be a good get for them. It's the right kind of market. So it's got, because there's a lot of detail in the article. It was reported by Ars Technica, but there's not a lot of detail on the actual distribution of the show. So we're looking at it's in production, and they're going to be talking basically. It is for sure going to air on CBS All Access, but it doesn't say if it's going to air in all countries on CBS All Access. Because right now, if you live in Canada, you get 0 of the Star Trek stuff because there's a deal with Crave for that. And in other countries, most of the CBS All Access content goes onto Netflix. So who knows?
Yeah, I think this is cool, although I wonder how much better it will be considering Retroware TV did this with their series. I can't remember what it was called.
I remember this years ago, yeah.
Yeah, it was a couple of years ago, and it followed the video game industry from like 1976 all the way up to 1990 something.
And they were unrestricted with how long they can make their episodes. But then again, if it's on CBS All Access, they can make them as long as they want to. It's all going to depend on who they have behind this and how much passion they have for it, because we know that, with like Retroware and with fans websites, money is super tight, so they can only do so much. They're going to be fairly unrestricted in what they can do. It's going to depend on who they can interview and what they can talk about, what they can say.
I mean, honestly, if they were to draw from some internet personalities, they absolutely need to talk to Norm from the Gaming Historian.
Or even talk to, like, pull up people that have been doing these sorts of videos for years. Pull up the people from Classic Game Room, like something that predates YouTube.
Or another one I would talk to Pat Contry, Pat the NES Punk. He's written 2 books on the subject.
They're probably going to go first and foremost with anybody that runs a museum. So, like, they'll be the ones in Vegas, or like the classic computing museums you have in like Texas around there. They'll do that sort of thing first, and they'll probably, like, I guarantee you're going to get interviews with Nolan Bushnell, anybody from the early days there, because really the only people that were making games before him are dead. So, like, they're not going to talk to Ralph Baer, the guy that made the Magnavox or anything. They might be able to talk to some people that worked in that industry, but it'll be Nolan first, because you got to talk about the guy that basically started the coin-op video game industry and started the console wars were started because of his system. So they'll talk to them. If they're smart, they'll talk to somebody at Microsoft, because half the people at Microsoft and Apple originally worked for Atari. So you might get some people there. They'll definitely want to get an interview with Miyamoto if they can, because they're going to have enough clout with the kind of company they are to actually get interviews with a lot of the Japanese producers.
Well, from what I've read from the article, a lot of this is told from Sega's perspective. So a lot of the Sega of America people are probably still around.
Even like the ones that were at the height of like the late 80s, early 90s, they're only in their 60s now, or 50s. But so they'll be around to talk. They're gonna want to show, if anybody, maybe Trip Hawkins, one of the guys from, the guy that started the 3DO company when he left Electronic Arts. That's a good stepping stone, because a lot of these people work for multiple companies, and then they're like, I'm going to throw my hat in the race. We're going to make the new system. Like, we really, with the exception of Stadia now, you don't really have anybody willing to go, fuck it, let's throw all our money in here and we're going to start our own system. You don't really have that anymore. And there was a ton of that from like 1980 to like 99. So you had about a 20-year period where you really didn't know, is NEC going to take off with the TurboGrafx? Is Panasonic going to come up with something? Is it could be anybody.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to this. I think it'll be cool. We'll probably get it on Crave up here, all things considered.
I think so. Unless, it's one of the titles that they do for their, they don't have it geo-locked. It all depends on if Crave or Bell or somebody has a stake in it. Like if they're producing it 100% on their own without anybody else, we'll probably get it on CBS All Access, which is good because it's only like $5 a month. And if either way, like I do think people are going to want to seek it out and watch it.
Yeah, I absolutely think so too. So that's pretty much going to do it for the news this week. So hopefully you have enjoyed such as it is. It's been good and bad this week, from people achieving monumental amounts of success to people getting doxxed. It's been a hell of a week. But we're going to take a look at Alex's look from Nintendo. We're going to look at Fire Emblem The Three Houses. This is an extended look. So join us as we take a look over the next 15 or so minutes with Alex and Fire Emblem The Three Houses. We'll be back right after this, only on This Week in Geek, the flagship of stupidity. I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd, joined with Alex the producer. We'll be back right after this.
And now it's time for another special feature.
Tickle. Yes.
Well, it's finally here. My review of Fire Emblem Three Houses from Nintendo and developed by Intelligent Systems. Now, this has taken me longer than I expected to review, simply because there was so much content, and I wanted to basically do like a 100% playthrough. I initially, as I said in my preview sort of initial thoughts earlier this week, I said that I wasn't necessarily exactly sure what to expect in this. I thought it would be just like your standard 30, 40-hour game. But no, it is 30 to 40 hours per campaign, 3 full campaigns, plus a secret extra campaign in there that I ended up stumbling across because I made some choices that were different than maybe a little off the beaten path. And it gave me a very, very different scenario from then on. I'm not going to do spoilers for that, but there are notifications in the game that will tell you that if you make this choice, it will have dramatic effects for later on. But in order to get that fourth mode or fourth campaign, you have to do some prerequisites first that aren't really spelled out for you. I just stumbled upon them in the way that I play. So I just happened to get that, and it made it much harder. I was playing it on easy just to get through, and it still was much more difficult. And I was like, why am I having such trouble? And then I looked online. People were saying, oh, yeah, you kind of found the harder version. So I was like, oh, well. Anyway, let's get into the basics of this game. Fire Emblem Three Houses is the next title in the long-running series of strategy RPGs from Nintendo. It's one of, basically, I would say, the flagships of the SRPG genre. Held up in high esteem, similar to like Final Fantasy Tactics, or like a more higher polished, more serious Disgaea type game. Pretty much top tier, where we're talking Nintendo doesn't have a whole lot of first party RPGs. They've sort of reinvented themselves with the Xenoblade Saga series, but this has been their longest running RPG series that for a while wasn't coming out in the West, but has consistently in the last few releases come out here. And it's the very first release on mainstream platforms, not on handhelds in the West since 2007, Radiant Dawn on the Wii, which I did not get a chance to play back in the day because, to be honest, I didn't think the Wii was suited for most RPGs simply because of the controller scheme. That isn't a problem here because I played it in portable mode when I was visiting family as well as plugged into the TV, and I had just as much fun playing it either way. So, here is the basic breakdown of the story. You're on a country named Fodlan, and it's divided up into 3 factions. One run by an old empire, one that is sort of run by royalty in smaller factions that are joined together by a king. And then you have a third faction that is just sort of led by the people, sort of like a prototype city-state nation. And you are basically enlisted by the church, which is at the center of it all, to protect it and sort of keep the peace. Now, you very early on are given the choice of which faction you want to join, just for the sake of being a teacher. You're a teacher teaching these people, these young adults, basically at a military academy, church/military academy. And whatever one you pick will have dramatic changes because that is the campaign you go down, and they are vastly different. So if you play a certain one, some key people might die in the other faction because of an action you make here, whereas if you played in their faction, they won't die. Somebody else might die, or maybe they'll not die, depending on what you've done. So there is a fair amount of differences depending on which one you play, and you should play through all of them, because when you beat the game, it gives you the option to save your data, and then you can go back in and play another full campaign. And even on like the easier, more casual, not really casual, because it's still difficult. You have to think through it. If you're playing it on the non-experienced in TRPG, like tactical strategy RPGs mode, you'll still get 25 to 30, maybe 35 hours, depending on how much you want to grind or how much extra you want to do in the side missions out of this game. So you're looking at 30, 60, 90 with the extra campaign. Anywhere from 100 to, I got about 105 hours in there, but about anywhere from 100 to 120 hours to do everything, which is pretty freaking cool. It's pretty jam-packed for like a $59 American, $80 Canadian game. And the basic gameplay is you have a hub world which is the church that you're at, where you can run around, interact with all the students, talk to them. It has a very persona feel to it, where you can raise the, not affection, but like their enthusiasm with learning lessons, which helps you level them up. You can learn more about the history of each of people. You can train your characters. There's a lot of little things you can do to raise your stats, help them evolve into different job classes, which open up new opportunities to like ride horses or fly on wyverns or like Pegasus horses. Spells are learned depending on, you can have tea time with people, which help raise their connections with you. And the higher you raise your support actions with them, the more things they'll do in battle to help each other. And if you play it on the regular difficulty, if a character dies in battle, they die permanently, and you won't have the use of them at all after that. So you could end up, if you don't play very strategically, you could end up not being able to beat the game because you've lost too many people to properly play. Now, playing it on the easy mode, or I keep saying easy, but it's not really easy. Playing it on the more casual mode, when people die in battle, you'll get them back after the battle is over. So it's not a permadeath, which is good. And for people that aren't used to that, and it opens it up for more families or younger players or people that are more inexperienced to play. As far as the rest of the gameplay goes, you have that hub world, and then you go in, and everything is done similar to a Persona or a like Trails in the Sky or Trails of Cold Steel style, where you have a calendar and it shows your weekly things that you're doing, and certain days of the week are free days where you can choose to either interact within the city and talk to people individually, do things like fishing, extra little mini games. You can go into battles and raise your status within the church by going to skirmishes, and those will give you points that you can use to polish and restore statues of old saints within the church. And when you do that, they give you bonuses. So like when you level up, you get an extra 2 points to your health, or extra 2 points to this, or it'll help you level up your skill with swords faster, that sort of deal. So there's that. There's also extra lessons you can take as a whole, where it just automates it. You can level up and teach lessons to a class automatically or manually. Manually lets you tune who you want to give points to. Automatically does it for you, does it on sort of an algorithm of its own as a plot device to move forward. You will then complete that day, and then you go into your lessons, and then the lessons finish, and then you have a certain amount of days and a certain amount of free time, a certain amount of events you can do before the next major mission. And when you hit that day that's a major mission, you cannot do anything else. So that's where the strategy comes into play of, do you want to focus on your own character's development? Do you want to focus on the other characters? Do you want to learn more about the world? Well, be careful how much you do before you're not leveled up enough or not prepared enough to do the next part. So it does have an autosave that saves every time you do any action, and there are plenty of save slots that you can save whenever you want, before any battle, before any major event, or even prompts you to save certain things. So I kept basically a slew of about 7 save files, where every time there was a new event, I saved to a different save file. So save 1, then save 2, then save 3, then save 4, then save 5, all the way through 7. And then I would go, okay, now I start over at 1 again. So I always had about 7 steps or 7 chapters that I could go back to if I made a mistake, which is something I learned back in the day, even on like Final Fantasy 2 and 3 on the Super Nintendo. If I owned the game, all 3 save slots are mine, unless my brother wanted to play and I gave him like save slot 3. But I would always do the thing where I alternated between saves. That's something you just learn, I guess, playing JRPGs back in the day, and it's definitely needed here. You do not want to be stuck with, a save that you cannot complete because you have only one singular save and you weren't leveled up enough beforehand. So yeah, just think about that before you go in. I think most people do that already, but that's just something that's pretty much a must here. There are brilliant cutscenes, really good animation for them. I'm not a huge fan of 3D animation in Japanese anime because they're usually not quite as skilled, to be honest, as they are in the West at doing 3D animation. This holds up pretty well because it's just for certain effects. Everything else is still hand-drawn 2D style, which is great. Getting into the graphics of this game, it's pretty much top-notch, the best you're going to see. Like, I really like the graphics in Xenoblade Chronicles 2 for the Switch from Nintendo. but that would stutter now and then. This is pretty buttery smooth in battle and outside and talking to people. I didn't notice any frame rate dips or anything. It's one of the best visually looking games on the Switch. As far as sound goes, we got surround sound, which is good because not every Nintendo game has that. They made sure they put that in. I've been trying to look it up and double check. I'm feeling like the voice acting this isn't the standard Nintendo crew doing this. Like in general, they usually get a lot of UK based people. It's a very British sounding cast for most of their games because I guess maybe there's some sort of tax break or something because they always seem to go with European crew. This sounds like the Sega Atlas team, the team that did Persona. Like I'm almost positive most of the people sound like they're people that did Persona or people from like the Yakuza team. Again, don't quote me on that, but I am like 99% sure just from my ear that this is the Atlas team, and the Atlas team is pretty much the top tier, dedicated localization voice acting team that there is right now. Sure, you've got other teams like they can get people they'll pick and choose individual people to work on things, or they'll get like I don't know the Funimation people to work on voices or something. But as far as a dedicated team, nobody's putting out quite the same quality as Sega is right now when they're getting their Atlas team to do things. And I'm pretty sure it's mostly the Persona team and people that did the Yakuza and Judgment sort of games. So if that's the case, fantastic. If not, then Nintendo has picked just a really good team as it is, but I'm like 99% sure. So there is an option to switch to Japanese audio. I honestly don't know why you would, because the voice acting is fantastic. There's really nobody that stands out as being terrible. Everybody seems to be pretty good and on point. Same with the sound design. I didn't notice any weird effects or anything. Everything seems smooth. This just feels like a AAA high-budget game. As far as replayability, again, there's plenty of times you can go through and play the different campaigns and see a different result. To get the whole story, like you have to go through and play all 3 campaigns and maybe get the 4th one in there too that I did. The 4th one is not a 4th full campaign. You basically get one of the campaigns, you play it about halfway through, and then there's a choice you can make depending on what you did earlier that dramatically changes the second half of the campaign. So it's like 3.5. So like 3.5 houses is probably a better way to say this. There's going to be a Seasons Pass that includes a bunch of extra missions and stuff, but the last part of the Seasons Pass is going to be more content for it. I'd like to see it because the main plot of this game unfolds, and if you play each campaign, you only get a piece of what was happening. So the first time I played it, I was like, did I miss something? And the answer was, yes, I did. I missed it because it was happening to the other house. So it feels like it's a steamroll. You're going full steam ahead, full steam ahead, full steam ahead, and you're like, whoa, the game's over? How is it over? Because it feels like it's building and building and building, and you hit a chapter and you're like, whoa, the end is here? Well, the end is here, but not realizing that I've already jumped in like 30 hours of gameplay. So it was kind of surprising seeing, it didn't feel like I put that many hours in, and I was like, oh, okay. Oh, so now I have to go back and play the other ones, and I get to see all the rest. So there is a lot left open. The lore of this world is pretty cool. There is a point in the game where you go to a mission, and you're like, oh, shit. It goes from being, high fantasy that the game is. You end up going and seeing, there's one mission. It's not really spoiling anything, but there's always the mission with the ancient technology in these types of games. And you see, like, ancient mechs. And they're interesting in that they're electrical, but they're also, like, electrical magical. So it's like you might fight like a giant demon or like a golem. Well, it happens to be like a mechanized, steam-powered type golem. And that's pretty cool because it's very different than the rest of the graphics. Like, a lot of the character designs are similar for your enemies at the beginning of the game. And then you hit that point, you're like, bam, it's not a palette swap. It's a full new, like, entire group of types of enemies. And from then on, it's sort of a mix and match of new textures and new characters for all the bad guys, which is pretty sweet. So, yeah, as far as, is this a good game to pick up for anybody? I would say it's going to be one of the top 10 games on the system, especially since it's exclusive. It's probably in my top 5 games on the Switch and top 2 or 3 strategy RPGs I've probably ever played. Like, that's how good this is. It's unbelievable. It was worth the waiting for this to come out, and I'm going to be, getting the season's pass for sure to play through. It's worth picking up for pretty much anybody. There is a certain level of reading comprehension needed, so it's not something that necessarily a 5 or 6 year old kid is going to like. To each their own, I guess. But if you are, a fan of anime, fan of RPGs, just a fan of good, well-built stories and games on the Switch, this is going to be one to pick up. So do not miss Fire Emblem Three Houses on the Switch.
Let's say you just bought a house. Bad news is, you're one step closer to becoming your parents. You'll proudly mow the lawn, ask if anybody noticed you mowed the lawn, tell people to stay off the lawn, compare it to your neighbor's lawn, and complain about having to mow the lawn again. Good news is, it's easy to bundle home and auto through Progressive and save on your car insurance, which, of course, will go right into the lawn. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discount not available in all states or situations.
You shouldn't go to Barnes & Noble and buy 10,000 books just so you can build a book fortress and yell out, "I am your book leader." You shouldn't buy 147 copies of War and Peace, stuff them inside turkeys, and serve them at Thanksgiving as turbookins. And you definitely shouldn't buy up all the copies of Dork Diaries, causing the neighborhood kids to stage a protest in your front yard. But you could, because at the Barnes & Noble Book Haul, you can get over 1,000 titles for 50% off. Stock up at your local Barnes & Noble. Turbookins are fictitious and should not be cooked at home.
What makes you qualified to be a reporter? I'm willing to violate anyone's privacy for my personal gain and then claim with a straight face that the public has a right to know.
By the hand of Zeus, what manner of deviltry is this?
I love fake alien poop day.
And welcome back to This Week in Geek, otherwise known as TWIG, the flagship of stupidity. Thank you all for that review of Fire Emblem The Three Houses, now available from Nintendo. Okay, so let's get into the weird, wacky, the just plain fucked up things that happened on planet Earth this week. And, well, Japan, you just couldn't leave well enough alone, could you? So Japan is allowing scientists to grow rat embryos spliced with human cells. A Japanese scientist has been granted permission to bring a human-animal hybrid to term. After a ban on the practice was lifted this year, I can't pronounce the scientist's name, so I'm not going to try. This scientist, who leads a team at the University of Tokyo and Stanford University in California, is planning to splice human cells to see if they will grow beyond the current limit of 2 weeks. If the scientist accomplishes this, it'll be the first successful experiment of its kind in Japan. The ultimate goal is to grow a human pancreas inside an animal so that it can be transplanted later into a patient. If we're able to generate human organs in animals, we could help many, many, many people, the scientist told Stanford Medicine magazine last year. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing.
Do you want Man Bear Pig? Because this is how that happens.
Do you want Planet of the fucking Apes? Because this is how it starts.
And I'd rather have Planet of the Apes than Planet of the Rats.
I don't know, man. Obviously, we put pig hearts and stuff like that, and stem cells are wonderful, and we experiment with those all the time.
If somebody had a pig heart transplant, I would just call them, Mr. or Mrs. Piggy all the time, forever. And you wouldn't be allowed to complain because you were saved by a pig heart and you're part pig then.
If it works. It's amazing what scientists are doing and how we're pushing the boundaries of science. I don't see anything ethically wrong with this. It just depends on what organs you're trying to grow. If you try, I
want a pig dick.
I don't think you can grow that, but think about think about brain cells and stuff like that.
Well, I don't think I'd want brain cells from another animal.
But what if they could regenerate tissue?
If they could regenerate your tissue without altering the way you think, yeah.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Where does the ethical boundary start?
I think things like, organs are one thing, brains are another thing to worry about. like you can't really like grow a finger with that. But like if they're like, hey, this animal is a little more resilient to skin cancer or something, maybe that would help. But even then, we get into eugenics. Then what you don't want is ultimately science will want to make us better, but what you want is for science to make us whole, not better. Because if you start making somebody better, then you have a war over who has the best genetics.
Yeah, and then we start getting into a very ugly discussion.
Yeah, if it's like, hey, this pig heart will make it so you don't have to have a rejection of blah, 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 and it'll work 80 to 99% as well as your old heart. Cool. If they're like, hey, this pig heart's going to make you stronger, run faster, run longer, well, that person should not be allowed to run marathons then. That person should not, it's like, oh, we're going to change your skin for this, and your skin's going to be more resilient to heat rays and stronger. Well, that person could become a criminal and then get shot and not have it, be catastrophic or something. So you do not want to get down the road of let's militarize what we're doing with this.
Well, I think they kind of explore ideas like that, and I think in the Deus Ex series where people become augmented with cybernetics and whatnot, and I kind of think we're gonna have that conversation in the next 100 to 200 years.
It'll be starting the conversation in our lifetimes, and it's it's stupid thinking to think that it's going to work super fast, but it's also stupid thinking to think it's way far off. Like we're anywhere from 30 to 90 years away.
Well, I think Elon Musk already wants to put computer chips inside your head in some capacity.
He's also like the smartest stoner on the planet, so I take what he says with a grain of salt.
But that's not an impossibility. There was a story we didn't cover a few weeks ago, but I read about it, where there was a prosthetic hand, then the person was able to feel what the prosthesis felt.
Which is cool.
Which is very cool. So imagine...
That's a step in the right direction.
When prosthetics become more and more naturalized, they become almost human-looking. And soon, amputees like myself will have our limbs replaced, and what's to stop a person from saying, well, my arm's not as strong as I want it to be. Yeah. What can science do for me?
See, what you want to avoid there, too, is, hey, I'm a lazy fuck, just replace my body parts so I don't have to work hard. Like, you don't want to get people that become so complacent that they're like, you know what? I just want to do drugs all day, all night, but I don't really want any side effects of dying. So could you replace my organs? To
filter it out.
Yeah, like replace my liver and replace my lungs so that I can't have respiratory problems, or if I die, it'll just revive me. So I just want to do heroin all day. You do not want to go down the road where that becomes our future.
I kind of wonder if things like that are going to start to happen, especially when you look at the applications of not just medical technology, you look at military applications of cybernetics, of genetic experimentation. Because if you could enhance a soldier through giving him a shot every few weeks, it opens up a scary fucking idea of what warfare is going to look like.
They already did that during like Vietnam and Korea, and that where they were giving people acid or giving them amphetamines, and like it's no different than what they were already doing with like. Remember the experimentations with, was it MK Ultra?
Yep, and that was the acid experiments to trying to see if they could do astral projection, remote viewing, stuff like that.
Cocaine and amphetamines and everything they used to give them during Vietnam. And look what it did. It fucked people up for life when they came back. So it's not unprecedented that they're doing this. It's just going to be, instead of at a drug level, it's going to be at like a molecular level.
So, not looking forward to this.
Exactly.
So, moving on to my next story. This one, I love the headline. Antique dildo will stay in Ireland after sex shop owner campaigns to save it. Let me see.
Great grandma's dildo.
Shauna Scott bought the Victorian-era sex toy at auction so she can donate it to an Irish museum. Evidently, this is a piece of Irish history that they thought had left the country forever. She says, I've been kind of like obsessed with this dildo, the Dublin-based owner of the online sex shop Sexslopia told the As It Happens guest host Rosemary Barton. According to Matthew Fine Art Auction, the sex toy was carved out of ivory in the 18th century and sent from China, where its owner was fighting in the 1899 Boxer Rebellion to his wife in Ireland. she says, I guess it's just the kind of thing that people did back then whenever they weren't sure if they were ever going to come home. This will be a dildo for Ireland in 2017.
Think about this. It'd be like, you go to war, you go to Afghanistan or someplace, you're like, I'm not sure if I'm coming back, so I made a mold of my dick, and this is all you get to use. Fuck yourself with it and think of me.
Supposedly, this happens more than you might think.
That's the thing. I'm laughing at it, but I don't doubt it.
So in 2017, the 130-year-old sex toy known as Lot 475 was sold to a private collector from the U.S. for about $4,600 Canadian. It was billed at the time as an antique carved from ivory's, this is a mouthful. Antique
That's
carved.
what she said about the dildo.
Oh boy! Antique carved ivory lady's companion in scarlet-lined leather upholstered carry box with inset beveled glass panel. I was absolutely devastated that it was going to be leaving the country because we don't have a whole lot like Irish sex history artifacts. Our museums tend to prioritize things that have to do with the Great Famine or the 1916 Easter Rising, stuff to do with the Revolution, and not so much our own sexual history. But it wasn't over yet. On July 27th, Scott received an email from a customer with a link to the auction house out of Cork, and it was a very unique sale. I thought, oh my god, I think it's the same dildo. Scott says the original buyer was likely unable to bring the piece to the U.S. because of the Obama-era ban on ivory imports, meaning she was able to buy it at a bargain price. That's when Scott decided to start a Twitter campaign to keep the piece of Irish history in the country. I was like, look, I know this is a long shot. Will someone please take me up on this, and maybe we can get a few donations going. And if we win, this will be a dildo for Ireland. She said she received $1,000 in less than 90 minutes, and in the end, she bought the sex toy for about $900 Canadian. Oh God. So it goes on. The sex toy has a little heart carved at the base of it where the owner's fingers would lie. There's also a compartment that can store a lock of the lover's hair or where hot water can be added to heat it up. Apparently, it's very romantic.
Sure.
This is weird. This is very fucking weird.
So you're basically being boned by a horn.
Yeah. That's so strange. Although, when I look at the photos of this thing, it looks huge, but the photos don't do it justice. I guess it's a lot smaller. Because I thought this thing was the size of like a baby's arm when I saw it. I'm like, holy Christ.
I'm thinking hilarious but dark things. Oh, it tastes like grandma.
I'm not coming home, honey. Use this. Holy shit.
It's been marinated for like 100 and some odd years.
However, speaking of grandmas and disgusting things, an Arizona man has learned his mom's body was sold to the military and then detonated.
Oh, good God.
So, an Arizona man was distraught to learn that his mother's body was sold to the United States military for blast testing, which involves strapping it to a chair before an explosive device was detonated underneath. An investigation reveals.
I'm just imagining somebody getting a video on YouTube. Look at we're detonating bodies. You'd be like, Mom, you finding a video of your mom getting blown up in a chair with her dead corpse.
Well, it's so fucked up because the body evidently had been donated to science because she had Alzheimer's disease. However, the doctors had worried that the disease may have mutated, and they hoped to study her brain after her passing. Okay. However, when the time had come, the neurologist couldn't accept the body. So her son had reached out to other donation facilities, and that led to the same result. So, evidently, dozens of families who've had their bodies donated to science, they donated them to the Biological Resource Center in Maricopa County, Arizona. And they trusted that their bodies would be donated to neurologists and other scientists that would study diseases, etc., etc. But it was sold to the U.S. military. The son had said she was then supposedly strapped to a chair on some sort of an apparatus. A detonation took place underneath her to basically get the to kind of get an idea of what the human body goes through when a vehicle is hit by an IED.
I mean, it sounds bad, but don't they already have that kind of idea from it happening all the time to people?
But so, yeah, you'd think you'd have enough data by now. I mean, this just sounds
to me, it sounds like somebody's like, hey, you want to blow up a body? Because there doesn't seem to be, like, there's simulations from that can be done, and it happens, unfortunately, and very sadly, on a very regular basis.
Well, there was a story, we didn't cover it, but it happened a couple weeks ago, where they found a chop shop in Arizona, and it was bodies that were sold to medical facilities, the military. Like, there's a whole underground market for corpses.
Good God.
It's sick. Like, it's fucked up. Like, I think I remember this quote from the story specifically. They found buckets of heads and buckets of penises.
Wait, sorry, what was that? Buckets of heads and?
Penises. They found buckets of dicks. Yeah.
So,
and they were just sitting in facilities waiting to be sold off.
Were they pickled? Were they pickled dicks?
I didn't read that part. But that's horrifying.
I'm laughing, but that's terrifying.
I mean, just to think about that, when you sign your organ donor card, presumably you'd think you're going to a good place, or you're going to help someone see.
This is the States. I'm pretty sure we have different laws here.
I fucking well hope so, because Jesus Christ.
Like, if instead of that, like, why don't you just stuff your body and put it on display like in Planets of the Apes or something? You know? That's more dignified than having my dick chopped off and thrown into a bucket full of other dicks.
Or sold to some person for experimentation or something.
Like a dick necklace or something.
You know what's weird? I remember I was watching a game show, of all things. This came on TV a couple weeks ago. And this person, they take people's bodies and they stuff them to life. So let's say you were a piano player, they'd stuff your body at your funeral to make it look like you're playing the piano or riding a motorcycle.
Yeah, didn't we saw one where it was a guy that died and they made him sit up playing PlayStation.
Yeah, or something fucked up like that. Oh, that's just weird tangent, but that's the fucked up news this week.
Now, what would your body be stuffed up to do?
Stuffed up with a Dungeon Master screen in front of me and a bunch of books.
And a bunch of books and
a bunch of dice.
With like a Megas t-shirt on or something.
Yep, something like that. Something simple, something classy. But no, I remember I saw one of these stuffed to life things. I'll never get this image out of my head. And it was a guy, and he was sitting there, he was covered in cigarettes, and he had one stuck out of his mouth. And sunglasses on. It was disturbing. That's the eternal memory you want for your fucking family? This is what you chose?
What gets me are the people that record their voice and then put it on their tombstone when you walk up and talks to you.
Oh, I would so do that.
No, but it's always something creepy like, hi, my name was this. It's like, ew. Like, I
don't mind playing trivia.
No, mine would just be like, I'm coming to get you. Or I would, every time somebody walked up, I'd be like, ow, watch where you're stepping.
I'm not dead yet. Dig me up and find a surprise.
Help. It's just like,
I'm not dead yet. I'm very badly burned.
Can I have my beer back? Say that, like from the classic Hold My Beer.
So that's the kind of news we had around the planet this week. As weird and fucked up as it is, that's the way it is today. So we have one final review from Alex. So this is his review for Metal Wolf Chaos.
Metal Wolf Chaos XD.
That's right. So check it out. We'll be back, guys, right after this as we close up the show right here on This Week in Geek, otherwise known as TWIG, the flagship of stupidity.
My fellow Americans, good morning. As Americans, we love freedom. But true freedom isn't a given, like the air we breathe or the water we drink. About 240 years ago, our forefathers fought greatly, giving their blood, sweat, and tears. And in the end, they won our freedom. And we must never forget this. If anything appears that threatens our belief in this freedom, we will oppose it. We will crush it. In order to protect our neighbors who love freedom and this faith in freedom, we continue to believe in our own justice. We won't abandon any battles. And the reason is because I'm the president of this great United States of America.
Mr. President, a coup is underway, and Vice President Hawk is leading the charge.
Richard!
Okay, let's party! Welcome to the White House.
Hello, citizens. I have the opportunity to review Metal Wolf Chaos XD early on Steam. It's also coming out on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. And you might be wondering, have I heard of this before? You probably have if you were a big mecha fan. Now, Metal Wolf Chaos was one of those weird, obscure exclusives on the original Xbox, brought out in 2004 to Japan when Microsoft was really trying to push getting into that market. And they tried again with the 360, and it never really went anywhere. But they were really going for it in the early 2000s when they were launching. So From Software, who you know from making all the Dark Souls and that sort of games, the super hard games like that, they used to make a lot of different types of games, and the Armored Core series and other things. But really, they don't really make anything else now except that one style of game, which is unfortunate because they used to be very inventive and very unique. And Metal Wolf Chaos was one of those. It's an action game where you control the president. Because here's the basic background here. So again, it was made for a Japanese audience, but they specifically made it very Western. It's like, what if you took somebody, from Japan and asked them if they've never been to America, but they only know America through television, movies, and propaganda, what would America be like in a video game with a mech? That's what they did. So you play as the president who's trying to stop a coup from the vice president and his evil army of nonstop soldiers that are trying to take over America and plunge it into chaos and totalitarian rule. So the only way you're going to stop them is the only way you know how, which is to pilot your mech and shoot them and kill them. So it has horrendous, and I mean horrendous, voice acting, but the so bad it's amazing that that's actually a selling point when they announced this, is they kept the original soundtrack. So it was, some of the people speaking sound like they're American, but they were just told read these lines and that's it. Some of it sounds like it's people that were just in the office that knew how to speak English for the most part, because there's not a whole lot of English or anything, for lack of a better term, where there's somebody who's not a non-native speaker trying to say words they don't understand. This sounds like very native speakers just reading a script that was put through Google Translate once or twice. So you'll get, at the beginning of the game, you get into a room and oh no, there's soldiers coming to shoot you, and the secretary will go, oh boy, they're gonna get it. It's like that sort of talk. And you'll just come in there and be like, I'm gonna shoot them. And it's so over the top. It doesn't do it justice me saying it. You'll have to just see clips of people from back in the day on YouTube playing the original game, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's just that perfect blend of when you see videos of the mid 90s PC CD-ROM games that had translations in in English from Japanese, or Resident Evil 1, or was Last Alert or something it was called, or I was going to say early RPGs, but for the most part, early RPGs, if they were done by working designs, they were pretty good. Sort of stuff that you'd see on the Sega CD, or the TurboGrafx CD, or early Windows 3.1 to 95 games that had been translated from Japanese, that sort of deal. Just that horrible translation. That's what this is, and it's so delicious. I love it. The graphics work fine on my PC. I had a few crashes at the beginning, but there was a patch to it, like where I got through the first level or two and then it just crashed. And then I was like, what? But then I realized they had a pre-release copy, and there was a patch already that came out for it that when I updated it, it's perfectly fine and worked great. I don't have the most advanced PC out there. It's what I call my Frankenstein PC. Interestingly enough, it's like a 2-generation old AMD Ryzen motherboard, which works with Ryzen 1 and 2, which I had a BIOS patch that makes it work with Ryzen 3, and that's what I put in there. So now, it's funny, I've got like a 2-year-old motherboard with a brand new Ryzen 6 core processor, so I've got a like, not like super high end, but it's like upper high end. It's what most gamers are going to be using. It's the Ryzen 5 3600. It is pretty much like the best bang for your buck CPU. So it's 6 cores, 12 threads. It can handle any game. But what I have is a GTX 1050, so a couple-year-old video card that does serviceable 1080p usually. Well, I can play this game at max settings at 4K, and it doesn't stutter or anything. So, and it doesn't make my system cry. The CPU handles its end very well, and I've got a surround sound system and all that jazz, and it's playing from a NVMe solid state drive. So, this is not a super taxing game like I thought it would be when they increase the textures to 4K. But they've done a really good job of, it's basically just increasing the textures themselves. The rest of the game is still basically a 15-year-old game. So it's able to run like when you get a game that's been like on good old games when they've taken a game and then upped it and done some tweaks to let you play it in 4K. It's like that. So it looks glorious in 4K because you have these super shiny high-res textures on like these low poly count mechs and stuff. Super fun. Now, I've said that over and over and over again. Is it going to win 1 million awards for being the best game ever? No. Is it going to be, one of the most fun, ridiculous games of the year, especially to play with your friends around? Yes. So, it works great on the PC and even on my Frankenstein computer. So I'm going to go and assume that it's going to be perfectly fine on your PS4 and Xbox One playing in 4K. The PS4 Pro probably won't even try trying to play it in 4K. It'll just work because it's just not a super intensive game. But play this with people around you. I had family over, and like my dad walked by and he goes, "What are you playing?" Like, all he said to me was, "It sounds like 90s," and I went, "Yes." So I would say, this is a game that you're going to want to pick up if you're a big fan of action games, if you like mecha, and especially if you love cheesy voice acting. Because nothing says cheese like the president going out there to kill the vice president and all the soldiers in the army. So, thumbs up to Devolver Digital for taking this title and announcing it last year, and I was so psyched. So I hope they get a hold of more weird, obscure titles like this and bring them out here because, this came out of left field and it's very welcome.
And that's the kind of show it has been here on This Week in Geek, otherwise known as Twig, the flagship of stupidity. Hopefully you've enjoyed our up and down discussions this week. They've ranged from the very serious to the very stupid, like you expect anything less on this show. And of course, we took a look at Fire Emblem, The Three Houses, Metal Wolf, Chaos XD, and The Curse of Llorona. I still can't fucking pronounce that.
Curse of
Yeah, exactly. I don't fucking know. Spanish ghost, scary, no.
The scary Spanish goat movie.
I wish I could pronounce it, but I can't roll my R's. Like, literally, I sat here with Blair for 5 minutes trying to pronounce it, and I just can't do it.
Some people just have that. Like, it depends on where you grew up. Like, I came from a German and Italian family, so that is a thing that happens, and even then I have difficulty with it.
Yeah. Like, I can understand languages, but I can't speak them, if that makes any sense.
So, because you are like, again, the whitest person I've ever met, even though you're not white.
Yeah, figure that one out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. So, yeah, what do we got coming up on the site this week? I know Nerds of the Third Power, we're doing planning this week, so there shouldn't be a show this week.
Yeah, because it's been off, I think, a couple weeks.
Yeah, we've been just doing we're doing rotation planning this week.
Fair enough. I've got, we are all caught up as of what I had already scheduled for the classic interviews. I'm going to go in and probably schedule a bunch more, or maybe some specials or some commentaries, for the classic stream. So we'll have a few of those a week. I'll be doing that later on today. I do have a Turd Treasure in the works. I've got a review recorded of the Pebble Plus creative speakers. You probably saw a video that I threw up of that. Yep. I'll be reviewing that, as well as a couple other devices that come in that will eventually put together at the next couple of weeks for a back to school guide. Here's a little spoiler: the speakers are pretty darn good for their size. I was not expecting it. I was expecting, honestly, really cheapy, crappy sound, but you get a surprising, decent sound quality out of them for being like $40 speakers.
Speaking of back to school, I'll be throwing together some social stuff. I have some Dungeons and Dragons stuff because everybody loves Critical Role right now. Honestly, if you go off to college, it shouldn't be hard to find a D&D group. So I'm throwing together
probably
some
better
ideas
than
for
ever.
you. Yeah.
And the package that came earlier that I said, can I open it? I opened it while we were off air. It is the brand new 7th generation iPod for me to test out for everybody. Again, going to be part of that back to school guide as well. What I was sent was the Project Red, where they have money that it gets donated to HIV. Not donated to get HIV, donated to HIV research and helping those that have it. It's the new 256 gig, so it's the largest iPod storage ever. It finally beats the, was it a 240 that came in the last version of the Classic with the iPod Classic spinner drive one.
I think so, yeah. That's what I had.
This, I believe, is the largest. It's taken probably 10 years since they had that, because they used to use physical hard drives, remember? But it's finally the largest iPod ever. So I'll be checking that out, because the other thing that they're trying to launch is, remember, they're launching their Apple portable gaming service, that subscription service that they've been talking about for a while. Mm-hmm. So this can do the augmented reality gaming with space that large. You can easily install pretty much any game you want on there that'll work on the mobile platform. So I'll be testing it out for the audio quality, for how the interface works, because it's been since I had an iPod. I had the 5th gen, and then so that's probably nearly 10 years old now, right? Because I know the 4th gen is about 5 years old. They didn't refresh anything since like 2015. And now this is the first time that they've refreshed it with, a new CPU and everything. So I'll be checking that out over the next couple of weeks, and I'll be putting my review out. I'm not sure exactly when, probably in a week or so, the basic review. And then I'll have the, I'll talk about it on the actual back to school guide after that.
Sounds like a good plan. So we'll have our back to school guide closer towards the end of the month. Like I said, I'll throw together some D&D products and some other stuff that I've been throwing out over the course of the last little bit. So be looking for that. So for This Week in Geek, we have been
Alex.
I've been Mike the Birdman Dodds, saying live for your Die Hard. And as always, be cool, be kind, be careful out there, folks. We'll catch you again next week right here on thisweekingeek.net.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at thisweekingeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at thisweekingeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at thisweekingeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@thisweekingeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership. Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie, it's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
And now, an ad from Dad.
All right, save money on car insurance when you bundle home and auto with Progressive. Can I take these off? All right. What is this? This looks good. Wow. That's well made. Where did you get this? I'm talking to you with the hair. Yeah, where did you get this? It's good stuff. That's solid. That's not veneer. That's solid stuff.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents, but we can save you money when you bundle home and auto. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company, affiliates, and other insurers. Discounts not available in all states or situations.